A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and no sign shall be given unto it, but the sign of the Metachrist. Welcome back, my friends, and I am finally back with some more Trench Crusade. The Kickstarter is being fulfilled as far as STLs and things like that. Still going to be a couple months, according to their emails, until physical copies and physical books and all that stuff come out, but we have STLs, and there is an opportunity on the Trench Crusade Kickstarter page, I believe, for late pledges and things like that. But the models are amazing. I am hyped. We finally got some Trench Crusade printed. Now, out of the two warbands that I decided to get first, the Heretic Legion and the Trench Pilgrims, I wanted to start with the Trench Pilgrims. Normally, like you can tell in all my other videos on this channel, I am a chaos and demon loving boy, but there's something that I think is very, very cool about the Trench Pilgrims. The overly zealous insanity for the power of God, right? And the righteous battle and all of this. Now, I don't mean to just be so Warhammer pilled that I relate everything to Warhammer, but it kind of reminds me, I feel like, took the Sisters of Battle and cranked them up a couple notches, but put them also in the real world. So this is the first army, or first warband, I should say, that I wanted to get started with because they really have inspired me, and I think they set a amazing tone for the setting that is Trench Crusade. Also, fun fact, a Trench Pilgrim is the very first piece of art that Mike Francina ever drew for this universe. So I think that's pretty neat. So before we dive into all this lore, I want to just give you guys an overview of what I'm doing paint-wise, because overall it's nothing too complicated. If you like this attempt, or my attempt at a grim, dark-ish type of style, it is a style I don't usually do, but I think we got something cool going on here. So the things that you'll see as I'm sharing some awesome lore with you guys is the things that are worth noting, I think, are Pro-Chrometallics are absolutely amazing. Used the bright bronze for all of the crosses and things like that. Some silver and dark silver on the helmet and that sort of thing. And some spoilers for the oil wash, where you might have seen this channel from my last Trench Crusade video where I was talking about oil washes. Now we get to put them in action, right? And the interesting thing I did here was using a dark blue oil paint for all of the shadows and hitting the underside of the model, and then using a burnt sienna on top where the light would be hitting it before wiping the oils off, left a more interesting, cool and warm tone shadow and light sort of thing, while putting this filter over the whole model, which you will see in just a little bit. On top of that, the last thing of note, which you also see in a little bit, the Army Painter Warpaint Fanatics technical paints are awesome. I usually don't make things very bloody. It doesn't really fit the style of the Warhammer stuff that I do. And as we get more into the Trench Pilgrims, you'll see why I thought this would be an awesome time to play around with that sort of thing. So the Army Painter Warpaints True Blood and Dry Blood, awesome technical paints. I love their whole range of the Fanatics technical paints. I can't recommend them enough. They're awesome. But alas, let's dive into their lore. Straight out of the Trench Crusade lore primer. As the war rages against the minions of hell, strange visions torment the faithful across the globe. Men and women touched by heaven are granted visions and revelations made by the messengers of God. Sisters of the holy orders are marked by stigmata and take up the sword and the cross as instructed by angels. Those who have transgressed seek to atone for their sins by taking as many followers of the devil with them to the afterlife. So they come, the mad and the maimed, the God-touched, and the guilt-ridden, all gathering around prophets and prophetesses, forming trench pilgrim processions. These disorganized groups arm themselves and follow the prophets of the Lord unto the front lines. They fight with unrivaled zeal, hurling themselves against the heretics, arming themselves with anything they can get their hands on, from the oldest muskets to scourges and Molotov cocktails. Pilgrims are not officially sanctioned by the Holy See of New Antioch, but the Church still blesses the Crusades of the faithful. Thus, the pilgrim processions are a common sight on the battlefields, often crossing no man's land in suicidal attempts upon the heretics, directed by visions of their prophets and prophetesses who lead them, urged on by the whips of castigators who are charged with instilling the fear of God in their troops. The bulk of the pilgrims are men and women with little military training. But when they don the iron caparo of a trench pilgrim, they can face even a demon from the deepest bulgius of hell unflinchingly. Nor is death necessarily an end to their mission. Sometimes the seventh Metachrist will deem a fallen pilgrim worthy and bring them back as martyr penitents, warriors halfway between heaven and earth, able to fight once more and feel no pain from a bullet or bayonet thrust. Rarer and more dangerous are the stigmatic nuns, holy sisters who manifest wounds to match those of the third Metachrist whom they venerate. They excel in close-quarter combat, for each bleeding wound that they suffer makes them stronger, not weaker, as their devotion to suffering as their Lord once did gives them the strength and endurance not found in common mortals. Armed with swords and pistols, they cross no man's land heedless of any danger, praying to sustain wounds for the Redeemer, which in turn will transform them into the very vengeance of the Lord. In front of the trench pilgrims are driven the ecclesiastic prisoners, either captured enemies of the true faith or volunteer sinners. Each is strapped with a high explosive, which is detonated once they reach the enemy lines. They dash across the killing grounds, hoping to somehow survive the blast and escape, or take as many followers of Lucifer with them as they can, depending on their convictions. The most puissant of pilgrim processions will be accompanied by a shrine anchorite, a metal behemoth some 12 feet tall, a living altar of war, almost completely immune to any damage. The interior of the anchorite is covered in spikes and barbed hooks, so that the monk pilot is in a constant state of torment, rejoicing in their pain so they can suffer as the Lord once did. In combat, they wield adamantine Catherine wheels of massive proportions, which they use to crush sinners and heretics into a pulp, stringing them up on the wheel as a warning to others. There are a bewildering number and variety of trench pilgrim processions. The Path of Pious Revenge swears in the name of Saint Olga and uses flamethrowers, burning grenades, and incendiary ammunition to assail the heretics. The Pilgrims of the Iron Path follow Saint Rita of Cascia and go to battle with hammers, mauls, maces, and cudgels, and hammer nails into their heads in the memory of the saint they venerate. The Theban Legion of Rome carries the heads of heretics upon their standards in the memory of their patron, Saint Maurice. They fight with swords and other blades, competing with each other for the number of heretic heads they amass. Trench pilgrims of the Procession of the Sacred Affliction are known for their zeal in close-quarter combat, their armor decorated with icons and shields adorned with depictions of the saints, which, despite appearances, can withstand machine gun bullets. The millstones they carry upon their backs are used to tie about the necks of sinners before drowning them in the mud and blood of no man's land. Now with this warband, there are a couple variants that I could also read you the lore from, depending on how you want to build up your campaign, which I think is very cool, because you really can do whatever you want with the base set, or you could pick one of these warband rules that have a slightly different flavor and switch up the rules a little bit for you. Now, one of them is the one I was just reading about, the Procession of the Sacred Affliction. There is another called the War Pilgrimage of St. Methodius, which is more of a shrine anchorite-based warband. Now, the one that really inspired me to want to play the Trench Pilgrims, on top of all of that beautiful insanity I was just reading to you, is the Cavalcade of the 10th Plague. So their little lore bit for this warband is: this Trench Pilgrim procession traditionally sacrifices lambs before a battle, anointing themselves in its blood to ward off the wrath of God. The pilgrims then draw holy symbols with the blood of the sacrifice upon their bodies, clothing, and armor, and then march to battle singing hymns, in certain belief that the blood of the Lamb shields them from any harm. Firm believers in the traditional readings of the holy texts, they reject any new doctrines of the Metachrist by the Church. They steal communicants from other processions and force them to fight for them in penance for being born of sin. Which, I think that is so good. With sacrificing lambs, and there are special rules too for blood sacrifices, and you have to spend money to get your sacrificial lambs and do all cool things like this. Really, really dig it. It's very flavorful. So are the other factions, but this one really gets me fired up. But now, with that, it's time to go over to the spinny shots. My friends, my foes, thank you once again for joining me in the world of painting and lore and all this good stuff as we dive a little bit deeper into the beauty of Trench Crusade. I am so excited to play this game, and I'm very, very hyped to see how much it's blowing up on the internet. It's amazing. I know before diving into the lore, I might have referenced the Warhammer faction, the Sisters of Battle. Now, if you're completely Warhammer pilled like me, you could probably see some similarities, but the amazing thing is I think this lore stands on its own so much. It's just, if you're finding this channel, you're probably also a Warhammer fan too. So there are comparisons, but it's more like a lot of these things have the same source material. You know, Trench Crusade isn't ripping off Warhammer. It's more like they both are ripping off religious zealots from the Bible. I shouldn't say ripping off. They're both inspired by the same thing, right? But it makes for absolutely dope lore that I am so excited for. And soon, I'm going to be playing games as soon as I get that book in my hands. So I got to paint these guys up. I believe the next one I'm going to dive into is that Shrine Anchorite. So we might just have a video on that. And also, coming in soon, we are going to have perhaps a new army in the world of Warhammer 40k. And aside from all this yapping though, if you want to hear me yap some more, come hang out. Give me a follow over on Twitch, where I stream at least 3 nights a week at twitch.tv/drinkyourpaintwaterlive. Link for that and Instagram and Discord and all that stuff will be in the description. Join in all that stuff. Tell me what warbands you're excited for. Or there's some crazy new releases coming out for 40k and Age of Sigmar. I'm gonna buy too many armies, guys. Please send help. But before I go on for too long, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.